Guten Morgen. I managed to slip in a lightning talk that has nothing to do directly with ownCloud. I wasn't sure what the idea was, but it made it through, so here I am. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a more general PHP topic, something I'm very interested in, which is promises and generators. So my name is Evert, I'm from Toronto. I'm happy to be here and stuff. I'm going to talk about asynchronous code in PHP. It doesn't happen a lot. It's much more of a JavaScript topic normally, but there's more and more little areas where you can take advantage of this. A few examples of that is asynchronous MySQL queries, when you need to do a lot of HTTP requests, especially if you can do HTTP requests in parallel, and also stuff like log parsing, it can help. So normally when you start with an asynchronous HTTP client, you would send you send a request, and you also pass a callback, and in a callback you can handle the response, and that's a very typical way to do this, and also works like that in a lot of JavaScript libraries like jQuery, for instance. A big problem with this type of approach is that I didn't fully rehearse. So to kind of put in short, the callback that you actually send to a client like that, normally you would this would look a little bit like this. It's just a function that you send a successful callback to and an error callback to. So this is kind of our generic asynchronous function. So this could be an HTTP client. It could be something that does asynchronous MySQL queries and so forth. Here's an example of us using this function. So here we're passing two callbacks, one for a successful response and one for an unsuccessful response. The problem is, as soon as you need to rely on the result of that callback and then do additional asynchronous operations within that, you start to really nest really quickly. So it's a bit tiny, but this is called the callback hell or a callback Christmas tree. So what people do instead is they use something called a promise. This is very prominent in JavaScript, and it's also possible to do the exact same thing in PHP. The asynchronous function returns a promise, which has a then and a catch or an error function that you actually handle the response with. So what is a promise? It's a feature result, and at least has at least two methods, then and catch. So catch is a reserved keyword in PHP, so we call it error. And the nice thing about a promise is that you can chain it. So the really big code sample that I showed before can be restructured as a really sort of much more elegant sequence of callbacks with only one error handler all the way in the bottom. So we can make this even better using a really cool new PHP 5.5 feature called generators. Generator helps us normally make iterators, and you use the yield keyword to return from the function, and every time in my numbers example here, the loop happens, we exit from the function, and it gets sent to whatever is calling this generator function. The cool thing about the generator is that whenever you hit yield, it works like return, but then you actually pause the function, and then something else happens to handle that result, and then after you're done with handling the result, you actually jump back in the function. So this is a completely new PHP feature that allows you to almost literally pause functions and later resume them. So we can actually use this to also for promises, and we can turn our really big list of chain promises into something that looks a lot more like a normal PHP function. So here we just have a try and catch block, like as you would expect, and a list of operations. We call our async functions 4 times, and we actually just get it as a result by using the yield keyword. So that was that. So I know that was super short, and this is actually a 45-minute talk normally. I just compressed it quite a bit. So if you have questions about it, then let me know.